In the Why Byte Python programming course, we learn programming by building interesting activities which can also be enhanced. All of this is available on our website. One such activity is the shopping cart, where the student becomes like an owner of an online store. For example, the student is running the store. It says, okay, enter 1 to 5 to select an item, 6 to check out. Let's say a user comes in, says, I want to purchase milkshake, but is very ambitious and puts in a huge number of quantity that he wants to purchase. Now our program right now is a little bit naive. It says, all right, I'm going to add this much to the shopping cart. Let's say I exit. Our program even generates a bill, which is huge. I don't even know how many zeros are in there, what the number's reading. But the question that comes up is it even realistically possible to have such a large order being fulfilled? Well, most shops have some kind of a limit that they can fulfill. That's called the inventory. Let's see how we can enhance this project to have a notion of inventory which we can use in our code. In fact, the idea is quite interesting. What we will do is to add one more list. This list will be this inventory which will contain how much of each of these items is available, let's say, at store. So I've just put some numbers here, but the important point is that this list is in perfect sync with the list's menu and price, which means, for example, item 0 of the list inventory tells me how many of milkshake, which is item 0 of menu, are available at the store. Unlike the menu and price, however, the list inventory keeps changing as the program runs. And we can see this with an example. For example, let's say user comes and says, well, I want to purchase three, quantities of milkshake. Inventory will go from being 100 to 97. User purchase 5 eclairs. Inventory for eclairs will become 35 to 30. This is 97 still. User decides to return 2 eclairs back. So now what will happen is this must go back to the inventory, and this will become from 30 to 32, which means that to implement this in code, we really have to worry about two scenarios. First scenario is where the user orders something which is more than 0, which means user wants to buy something, add something to the shopping cart. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that we cannot fulfill orders that exceed the current inventory. And in that case, we must tell the user that, we are unable to fulfill your order because it just asked for too much. I don't have so much with me. Case 2 is where the user orders a quantity to be removed from the shopping cart. Now, in this case, the shopping cart will be reduced, but this must go back into the inventory. Let's see the code changes we will do for both of these. What we will do really is, in the case of in this case where the quantity is to be added to shopping cart, remember, now we cannot blindly just add something to the shopping cart. What we will do is to first check whether my inventory is more than the order that has been received. So what I'm doing here is min of quant and inventory. If quant is smaller, then quant is the output of this min function. So what I'm saying is that if my quant is less than the inventory, then I can indeed add that much quantity to added quantity. Else I'll add whatever I have in the inventory. So for example, let's say user says I want 105 units of milkshake. Well, unfortunately, I cannot give that because my inventory is only 100. But if the user wants, say, 80 units of milkshake, then I can indeed provide that. Now, having done this, in fact, it's quite straightforward. Instead of adding a quant like we were doing earlier, what we will do is we will add the added quantity. And also in this case, we'll append added quantity. Just one little caution here that I have put an extra if condition here, because it's possible that my quant is more than 0, but my added quantity becomes 0, because now, having done all this, I must update my inventory, because remember, I'm taking out this much from the inventory, added quantity. I must go and remove it from the inventory, and that's what I'm doing here. And like earlier, I just tell, okay, I'm adding to shopping cart the added quantity. Notice this is no longer quant, it's now added quantity. And out of courtesy, I tell my user if the added quantity is less than quant, well, very sorry, I did try to fulfill your request, but my inventory is running out. I'm unable to fulfill that right now. On the other hand, when the user wants to remove something from shopping cart, it's actually easier, because all we have to really do is that once the item has been removed, we can just go and update that in the in the inventory. So let's write all this code and see how this works out, because that's when it gets interesting. So let's come back to our code here. Like I said, I'm going to introduce a new list called inventory, and in this inventory, I've got, for example, 100, so maybe 30, say 35. I'm just some numbers anyway, right? So 45 and say 50. Right? So this is the items that this is the availability that I have for all these different stocks. Now I come in here, I take my code. Okay, if order, if if the user wants to enter something, which means if quantity is more than zero, so I say, for example, added QTY is indeed min of QUNT and inventory. Okay, to be careful, inventory order -1. Now notice that I have to use order to index into inventory because inventory is in sync with menu and price, just like we're using order here for the menu list. Now, having done this, in fact, it's quite straightforward. So all I'm going to do is that I'm just going to replace that with this added QTY. So just do that here. Be a little bit careful. And over here, I'm going to add a clause that if added QTY is say greater than 0, then I go and append to this list here, the shopping carts. I just indent this a little bit, and I just replace this with added QTY. Now, again, I'm adding to shopping cart, not quant, but added, added QTY. So I put that, and so now I have to update my inventory. The point to understand here is the indentation. I am doing all of this if requested quant is more than 0. Added quantity could still be 0, that's okay, but it must go at this indentation level because this is where that this if is kind of indenting over here, right? So I go and say inventory, say order -1 is equal to inventory, say order -1 and minus added QTY, so that my inventory gets updated. And like I said previously, if it turns out that I'm not able to fulfill the user's request completely, so I just go and say if added QTY is less than QUANT, that's what user requested. So I go and say, well, I'm very sorry, but so I just say inventory running out, unable to completely fulfill. Yeah, that should be say fulfill your request, so that user understands what has happened. Now the other scenario is when requested quant is less than 0, which is, so let's just put this a little bit bigger. I can put this mode. Now the other scenario is where quant is less than 0. So once again, we have to just be a little bit careful about indentation. This must happen if I am actually removing something from the from the shopping cart, and that happens inside this if. So I must come to this indentation level, and then I can just add. So I can just go and update. I can take this statement over here and place it here, but of course I must be this time round, I say plus say removed QTY. So removed QTY. Yeah. Now this should be pretty much it. Let's just try this. Let's just see this working. So I'm going to make this, let's say, a little bit more easier to read. So when I run this code, for example, say so I say I want 1 unit of milk. I want milkshake, but I know that I had say 100 units available to me. Let's say I first purchase maybe say 85 units. This order I expect to be fulfilled, and indeed it says added to shopping cart 85 units of milkshake. Let's say I say 6. This time round I get a shopping cart, but if I look at the list inventory, it has become 15 because I've purchased 85 out of those boxes. Now obviously when I run this again, it will again become 100. But let's just take one more scenario. Let's say I again choose milkshake. This time I say I want to purchase 120 of these boxes. Now clearly it's unable to do so, but it does add 100 units of milkshake to my request. And let's say I say, okay, I want to go further. I'm a little bit persistent here. So, I say I want to add, maybe I select a milkshake. Again, I say give me 20 more because that's what I wanted. Perhaps I didn't see your message. Unfortunately, it added 0 units to milkshake to the, cart, and it just says unable to completely fulfill request because inventory running out. If I look at my, my shopping cart here, it is indeed, 100 units have been added. If I look at the list inventory, notice this has become completely empty. Let's look at the other scenarios. So I have here, let's say, I say, for example, maybe I want to this time around say purchase, so I've got 30 units of this. I chose ice cream. Let's say I want to purchase 15 of ice cream. It does at 15 units, But then I decide, I change my mind. I say, no, no, I want to return some of this. So I say choose again, and I say I want to return 10 of this. So it says, okay, I remove from shopping cart 10. Let's say I display. So my shopping cart has got indeed 5. But if I look at the list inventory, it has got 25 again, because remember I did take out 15, but I replenished 10 back into the system, back into the inventory. Lots of interesting list interactions going on in this. Think through this carefully and be systematic. If you think you enjoy this mode of learning where we are doing learning as part of some activities, do check out our website. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.